Welcome into Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Madson. I write about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. He's Chris Biderman, and we're going to talk some 49ers preseason. That's right, the 49ers open up their preseason on Saturday in Tennessee. We'll talk about that, and we'll give you the latest on what's happening with Brandon Aiyuk. But before we do that, Chris, I need you to fill me in on lamb chops.
Yeah, if you've been listening to the pod, you're well aware that Lamb Chops is the official clothing supplier of the Candlestick Chronicles podcast and the official uniform of the recording process of the Candlestick Chronicles podcast. Currently wearing my lion face printed mesh shorts, perfect for the hot weather outside in Sacramento. I probably have like 4 or 5 of these pairs of mesh shorts with the drawstrings, and a couple have the zipper pockets. You know how much we love the zipper pockets. High quality clothing, very comfortable, perfect for the warm weather. Their new summer line is out. It is awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on some. Go to sglambchops.com. Use promo code Candlestick20 for 20% off your first order. Check them out on Instagram at sglambchops, and I believe they're on X, formerly Twitter, also at sglambchops. So we love lamb chops. Again, great clothing, super comfortable. Some conversation pieces, I would say. And it's all unisex, so good for guys and girls. So check them out, sglambchops.com, and use promo code Candlestick20 for a little discount on your order.
We are also sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They have over 5 million active users. And Kyle, what's Prize Picks? Yeah, I hear you asking that. Let me tell you. All you do, it's daily fantasy sports, and all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch the winnings roll in. Kyle, watch the winnings roll in? What does that mean? I know what you're asking, and let me tell you, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks that with as little as 4 correct picks. So you get 4 right. There's a chance for you to turn $10 into $1,000. And with the summer games wrapping up, you want to get in there. You know I'm going to be rocking with my guy Steph Curry. I'm going to be rocking with LeBron James and Kevin Durant. I think the 3 old guys on Team USA, I think, are going to carry them to a gold medal win in men's basketball. So I'm going to be rocking with those guys on Prize Picks. But there's summer games. They've got baseball, of course. Once the WNBA comes back after the Olympic break, you'll have WNBA. We've got hockey, NBA, NFL, all that firing up. College football starting up this month. We're going to have college football, so get into Prize Picks now. And you can do that by downloading the Prize Picks app today and use code Candlestick for a first deposit match up to $100. So download the Prize Picks app, and when you get there, code Candlestick, get a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, let's talk about the 49ers. Preseason action. I'm fired up. I know Chris is fired up, but we got to put a pin in it. Just hold on, call off the dogs on the Niners-Titans preseason chat for a moment. I've waffled and waned on this, Chris. I have changed my mind dramatically several times over the past 36 hours or so. As of 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, August 8th, I no longer think that Brandon Aiyuk is going to be traded by the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think we should zoom out a little bit. The last time we recorded this podcast was Monday. We went to training camp on Sunday. We talked about what we saw. We had Matt Barrows on the pod. And then minutes after we recorded that podcast, Matt Mayoko, friend of the pod, who was coming back from Canton, Ohio, where there were some 49ers, some high-ranking 49ers officials, one would say, reported that the 49ers were talking to the Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots about trading Brandon Aiyuk, which was a bombshell and has since become the biggest NFL story of the week. And this is our first podcast talking about that. So there's been a lot of discussion and a lot's happened. And a lot of smart people have said, even, Mike Garafolo, I know of NFL Network, is expecting, he's talking like he's expecting Brandon Aiyuk to get traded. There have been some reports out of Pittsburgh saying the Steelers have a deal done for Brandon Aiyuk. Those reports, obviously, again, as of Thursday, August 8th, have not been proven correct. But I'm with you, man. Like, I don't understand why the 49ers should feel like they have to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Because he is under contract. It's the worst time of year that you could trade him, right? Like, you're not getting a player back, particularly from the Steelers. Like, you look at the Steelers roster, I don't know, outside of TJ Watt, who they're not trading, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, who it doesn't seem like they're trading. I don't know who's helping you on the Steelers roster that is keeping you at the same level or making you better when it comes to, trying to contend for a Super Bowl here. So for me, I don't I don't see any point in trading Brandon Aiyuk. And that's one thing I haven't heard any good answer on. Like, why do the 49ers feel super compelled to trade Brandon Aiyuk? Now, Mike Silver did write that Kyle Shanahan seems pretty irritated with the situation. And Silver is obviously really plugged into the Niners, and has an ability to convey what's happening behind the scenes, I think. But I just don't know why the 49ers should feel compelled to trade him. Like, he's under contract. Like, what's Brandon Aiyuk going to do? He's going to be a malcontent and then be the guy who costs his team a chance to win the Super Bowl all year. I just don't think Brandon Aiyuk is really that guy. And I
don't either.
I think the negotiations have been ugly. It sounds like there's been no counteroffer to the 49ers, $26 million a year on average, which has basically been standing since May, which Silver reported. I think Diana Rossini of The Athletic has also reported that. So to me, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense to trade him. I understand why Brandon Aiyuk is not reporting and why he's requested his trade. I don't fault him for that. I think turning down the reported $32.5 million from New England is telling that Brandon Aiyuk still wants to win, and winning is probably more important than being the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. But to me, if I'm the Niners, it's like, all right, just offer him 28, 30 million a year and call it a day. Like, let's move on. Like, it seems like it would be that simple. And I don't understand why the 49ers are being so tight on their offer, and why they're not trying to just end this with a deal, because it feels like once they get to 28, 29, $30 million a year, it does feel like Brandon Aiyuk would sign. And then at that point, you can actually take the focus away from all the contract stuff that they're dealing with and just focus on the season. Because right now it feels like the Niners aren't in a good place, and it feels like they're not in a good place because of all this contract stuff going on with Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, I'm sure the contract stuff has to do with them projecting out over the next 3 or 4 years, right? They know they got to get this thing done with Trent Williams. They just gave Christian McCaffrey more guaranteed money down the road. They've got this Brock Purdy contract coming up, which may clear $60+ million. So I understand it from that aspect, but you and I have talked so much this offseason about how there's not that many more guys more important than Brandon Aiyuk over the next 3 or 4 years, as you turn the reins over to Brock Purdy as the team's franchise quarterback. I don't know that a couple of $1 million is going to make or break the team, right? Like, that's kind of what the way I'm looking at this. And maybe he wants something outrageous, but I think from the trade the trade side of this is, I don't think he wants something outrageous. In fact, I think he wants a number that the Niners feel like, man, if he only comes down a little bit, we'd come up to meet him. Like, that's what they're. So they've got their hardball negotiation final offer on the table, and Aiyuk is going, no, I need more than that. And so the 49ers are doing what they've been doing, to me anyway, with his availability, where, and we've talked about this before, and they've talked about it. Like Kyle Shanahan said, if everybody's available, if a team called and made the right offer for me, like, I'd be traded. I think that's what they still want. They're going, okay, fine, yeah, you requested a trade, we'll go look for a trade partner, but we're not just giving you away for pennies on the dollar. If the Steelers want to send over Alex Highsmith or Minkah Fitzpatrick and a first-round pick, okay, we'll think about it. But if they're going to try and send over a middle-of-the-road guard and a couple of day 3 picks, like, no. That doesn't help. So cool. Here's this offer. We'll shop you since that's what you want, but we're not going to give you away. And in the meantime, you can end all this anytime. Contract's on the table. So I'm interested to see if, because I think if the Steelers were going to come with the right offer, I think they would have done so already. That's kind of why I think the fact that we've heard all this Steelers stuff now for 36 hours, and there's at least at this point 36 hours, and there's been no movement, at least nationally, on it from any national reporters, leads me to believe that there's just not a deal to be worked out. So maybe this all clears up, and maybe the Niners get through their first preseason game and they get an idea of what Aiyuk was being offered by other teams, and they go, okay, fine. We're at 26. We see that there's a bunch of teams that'll give you 28. So fine, here's 28. Maybe that's how this all goes, but you hit the nail on the head. There's just no reason for them to trade him for nothing.
Like, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it a lot. And like, say you don't trade him, and say you don't even sign him to an extension.
Right.
Say you just force him to play on his 5th-year option. Like, what's the worst case scenario that's going to happen? Like, because I don't believe that Brandon Aiyuk is going to sit out the season, right? Like, Le'Veon Bell did that, and it basically ruined his career.
Yep.
Like, if he doesn't get an extension and he's playing on his 5th-year option, then he's still going to want to have a good season, not only for the money that he could potentially make next offseason, but because he cares about his teammates. Like, Brandon Aiyuk is a good teammate. He's well-liked in the locker room. He's never been a malcontent. Sure, he was in the doghouse entering his 2nd season because there were some practice habit things and I don't know, some different things, but it was never like, man, Brandon Aiyuk's a diva receiver who is unhappy with his role and wants. That's never been him. So if you really don't want to cave to his demands, then go into the season and tell him, like, look, like, unless you're taking $26 million, we're not trading you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I would disagree with that thinking, because for me, it's like, man, pay him $30 million a year if that's what he wants. Right. Just do it. Like, this is like an extremely important season because you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and this team is going to look drastically different. Like, if paying Brandon Aiyuk now is a difference between being able to keep Deommodore Lenoir beyond this season, and that's really what you're facing. Just do it, man. Like, Brandon Aiyuk is too good. He's too good. And it's like, you cannot risk the entire season because you want to have $3 or $4 million more in cap space on average, however it would shake out, just so you could sign another guy or two. Like, this season is too important to be trying to thread the needle of focusing on now and the present, right? Like, Barry, as sports fans, know all about the 2 timeline thing because the Warriors have tried to toe that line and it clearly hasn't really worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Niners just can't do it. Like, they just need to pay this guy. Dude. They need to pay him, and they would be stupid to trade him. If they came out of this and traded Brandon Aiyuk for a 2nd-round pick or whatever, it would be the biggest personnel gaffe. I think it's worse than the Trey Lance. I think it's worse.
It would be way worse.
I think it's worse.
I think the Trey Lance thing, the logic applies, right? It was a big swing. You see why they took the swing. They missed, but at least you went, you know what? Hey, you committed to a quarterback. That's what you got to do. It didn't work out. Okay. This would be just a whiff for no reason. It's an own goal.
Yeah, it's an own goal.
I don't.
The Trey Lance thing, like, that stuff happens, and the logic was there, right? Like, you trade up for a quarterback, you put him in a good situation. Presumably, he's going to be your starter. The thing is, and this is my belief, and maybe I'm totally off on this. Had Brock Purdy not come in and been good right away, I think Trey Lance would have been good eventually. He would have gotten the playing time, and I think he would have improved to the point where, okay, this guy's a serviceable player, right? He was a young quarterback. Anyway, that's a different conversation.
I'm point now being, 1 foot in that camp after his performance at Cowboys camp so far this year. But go on.
But the point here is that, and I know that's a different subject, and there's a very good chance I'm wrong on that. I understand. But trading Brandon Aiyuk in August after you had an opportunity to trade him before the draft and potentially get a first-round pick for him, and then go into this season with arguably the best roster you've had, your best chance at winning a Super Bowl after coming up short in 4 of the last 5 years, like painfully short, I think would be the biggest mistake they've made. Like,
I couldn't agree more.
Full stop. Like, I think it's worse than the Trey Lance thing. I think it's worse than the DeForest Buckner thing, because at least the Trey Lance and DeForest Buckner thing, like those moves had logic. You could defend that.
Yes.
There is zero defending trading a receiver in his prime who's Brock Purdy's favorite target weeks before you're trying to win a Super Bowl.
It's insane. It's totally insane.
So,
and I want to real quick just go back to the Deommodore Lenoir thing. I don't want that to get lost. You mentioned Lenoir, Charvarius Ward, and I think I said this on our last podcast. It feels DeForest Buckner-ish, right? Gonna let this guy go because it means we can keep this guy and this guy and this guy. When has this team ever prioritized cornerbacks? When has that ever been a thing? And now all of a sudden they are going to let Brandon Aiyuk go because they want to pay one of those guys? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't track at all.
I think if you're this Niners organization, you have to operate like 2025 and 2026 problems are problems to be dealt with in 2025 and 2026.
Facts, dude. That is, if they had, and here's the deal. If they had a Lombardi trophy already or two, the urgency is a lot different, right? You're still trying to win, but the urgency feels different.
Yeah.
The fact they don't have one, you don't get to worry about 3 years from now anymore. I get why. Like, I understand, my brain understands the logic of why they're doing that. But at the same time, how are you not looking around camp right now, seeing that Brandon Ayuk's not there, the list of players that our favorite cast member, Nick Wagner, tweeted out who were not at practice today, and these are not all vet rest guys, trust me. It is long. It was like 15 guys not practicing. You've got Christian McCaffrey dealing with a calf thing. It's like Trent Williams is holding out. He hasn't even shown up yet. And you're trying to go win a Super Bowl starting 1 month from today? What? I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, so we agree. We agree. Like,
we're in
49ers need to just pay him. And like, honestly, if they overpaid him, I wouldn't really, like, whatever. Players get overpaid.
Is anybody at any point between 2024 and when Brandon Aiyuk says, I'm calling it a career, is anyone going to go, boy, the Niners really going to really regret paying Brandon Aiyuk 28 instead of 26?
Right.
That's not going to happen. That's not ever a thing that will happen. Real quick, speaking of wide receiver contracts, a Cowboys reporter posted a photo of Jerry Jones with this caption: Cowboys owner Jerry Jones on contract talks with CeeDee Lamb. Quote, I don't have any urgency to get it done. CeeDee Lamb then quote tweeted that with LOL, period. It could be worse. It could definitely be worse.
But it's kind of the same thing. Like, the Cowboys are just being cheap.
The Cowboys are, I heard this on the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. They're spending the least amount of cash in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. The most, like,
crazy.
Arguably the most valuable sports brand in like the entire world. The Cowboys are just being cheap. And the Niners are just being cheap. Like, let's call this what it is. They're being cheap right now. Like, to offer Brandon Aiyuk $26 million when all these dudes at his level or worse are getting 28, and even Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting 30. You're like, we're trying to win the Super Bowl, but we really need to hold on to this extra $4 million in cap space. Like, that's just, it's weak stuff, man. It's weak stuff right now.
From an APY standpoint, average annual value, AAV, whatever you want to call it. Devontae Smith is making 25. Cooper Kupp is making 26.7. DJ Moore got 27.5. Devontae Adams 28. Jalen Waddle 28 to 50. Tyreek Hill 30, etc., etc. I've heard the argument that, oh, well, Cooper Kupp's making 26.7. Brandon Aiyuk isn't as accomplished as Cooper Kupp. Ergo, 26 is a good price. That is not how this works at all. That is totally not how this works. There's not it'd be cool if it did, but that's not how this goes at all. Like, the market's reset. Like, that's
it's always about timing.
Yes. It's
always about timing.
Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jalen Waddle and DJ Moore, those are the bars that Brandon Aiyuk is working with, not Cooper Kupp's deal that he signed 3 fucking years ago.
Devontae Smith's over 28, right?
Devontae Smith is at 28. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Devontae Smith is at 25 a year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
I thought you meant Devon. I thought you said Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams.
No, look. When the Niners signed Jimmy Garoppolo in February 2018, it was the largest contract in the NFL
for like 3 weeks.
And like when George Kittle signed his contract, he was the highest paid tight end in the league by far. When Fred Warner signed his contract, he was the highest paid linebacker in the league by far. When Trent Williams signed his contract, it was like $1 over David Bakhtiari, $23 million a year.
Right,
but he was the highest paid tackle. So the 49ers have a history of making dudes the highest paid players at their position. Just because that's what time necessitates. Like when you are a all-pro type player, and Brandon Aiyuk was quite literally an all-pro last year. I'm not saying that he needs to make Justin Jefferson money or even Tyreek Hill money, but like 26 is your offer, and you're willing to risk your entire Super Bowl season in this window that might be shut after this year, and you might be losing all of these dudes next offseason because you have to pay Brock Purdy. You're like really clenching your fist over $4 million a year, and you're putting all that at risk. Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't see the logic behind what's happening.
The only way this tracks to me, because I'm not refuting any of the reporting or saying any of the reporting is bad. This would be different for me if the 49ers were sitting at 28. I know Diana Rossini and I think Mike Silver reported 26. But let's say in reality it's 28. And Ayuk sitting at 30 and going, no, I want 30. Then I would feel different at that point. But if the Niners are really... But the reporting out there, everything we know is that it's 26. So that's the number we're working with. That's insane. That is too low of a number.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. But so I think they're being cheap, but I also think they're being smart by not trading him. If they don't trade him, and who knows, as of, Tuesday late afternoon, Brandon Aiyuk's still on the Niners. And I think we're in agreement that that's how it's going to be. Like, he's going to be with the team.
It's really funny because there's like...
Or just risk doing the dumbest thing they could do and trading him away.
Oh my God. Yikes, dude.
Sorry,
it's so funny. It's so funny. We should so Matt Mayoko, friend of the program, NBC Sports Bay Area, reported on, was it Monday night, Tuesday night, whatever it was. I guess it was Monday night because it was right after we recorded our pod. Yeah. And with other friend of the show, Matt Barrows. Salute to both of them. Salute to the Matts. And he reported that the Niners gave Aiyuk permission to talk to the Browns, Patriots, Commanders, and Steelers. Everybody knows he wants to go to the Commanders and Steelers, but they have the framework of deals with the Browns and the Patriots. Like, at that point, to me now, in retrospect, that was the Niners going, okay, fine, we'll look into it, but if we can't trade you, you're going to have to sign. We're playing your 5th-year option. And all of this publicly has been, okay, fine, we'll agree and get, fine, okay, the Steelers are coming back to the table. We're going to trade you unless you sign this. And Aiyuk is going, okay, fine, cool. If the Steelers are in, I'll wait. I don't know.
It felt like when the 49ers leaked it, and that's the other side of this too that we can talk about. The Niners have been generally quiet when it comes to all of their deals, right? Like when the DeForest Buckner thing happened, it just kind of happened out of nowhere, right? Like there wasn't this week of like, oh, the 49ers are trading DeForest Buckner. They're talking to all these teams. These are the teams they're talking to. This feels very intentional in terms of the front office wanting messaging out there. And to me, this is their way of trying to exact their leverage publicly and say, hey, Brandon Aiyuk would rather, potentially go make more money elsewhere in a worse situation than take less money to try to win a Super Bowl with us.
Yeah.
And I also think in allowing Brandon Aiyuk to negotiate with other teams, they've sort of allowed Brandon Aiyuk to see what the market actually is. Because maybe Brandon Aiyuk was asking for 32, right? And maybe the Patriots came up with that number because that's what he's asking for. And to your point earlier about 28 or 30, if Brandon Aiyuk wants 32 million from the Niners, then I understand why they wouldn't be dying to sign that contract. But 26 is dramatically less than 32. It's not even close, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it might have been an exercise where they're like, yeah, we don't think you're going to get a $32 million offer. So we're going to shop you and allow you to talk to other teams and actually see what your market is based on, what people are willing to pay for you.
Well, they must have
Patriots. Go ahead.
They must have been close enough in whatever talks they had before the draft. There must have been a small enough delta that the 49ers went, okay, we can close this. Like we're not so far apart that this can't get done, so we're going to hang on to him. So that's what leads me to believe this is all over like a couple of $1 million a year.
Yeah,
my categories.
It seems small. And I've seen other people, or I've heard other people talk about how, basically Nick Bosa won the negotiation last year when he was holding out to get his contract. And the 49ers, of course, are typically, and this cuts both ways, but the 49ers are typically very difficult to negotiate with. And I think that's a good thing in the sense that they've managed to have a bunch of highly paid players on the same team and contend for championships over a pretty prolonged period now. Like, I think that's a credit to them. But the other side of that is when you run into a situation like this and you're just at an impasse and it's to the point of almost ridiculous, where you're stubborn to the point of just not paying a dude who clearly deserves to be paid.
Right.
So it cuts both ways. So like, man, if the Niners feel like, oh, we really got worked over by Nick Bosa last offseason, we had to pay way more than we wanted to, so we're really going to hold firm this time. I do not think that's the most mature way to construct a roster.
I would agree.
And I think this is all predicated, again, on the fact that, like, your window might be closing. Like, depending on, unless Brock Purdy, like, really elevates and becomes, a top 5 quarterback in the league year in and year out, like, you're going to have a hard time competing for championships going forward after this season because, you might lose Drake Greenlaw. You might lose both your starting cornerbacks. You might lose, Trent Williams is not going to play forever. This might be it for him, right? Like he said, he wants to play multiple seasons. Joe Saley said the same thing and then ended up retiring after 2019, somewhat unexpectedly. Right? Like, so like it's just not, this championship window isn't going to be open forever. And I think you're really playing with fire if you're not going to pay Brandon Aiyuk and you're going to maybe trade him to, for 60 cents on the dollar in August. Like if you're going to trade him, do it before the draft. If you knew you weren't going to pay him, like to your point, they must have felt like they were close in the spring.
I would assume so.
Yeah. I'm kind of all over the place with this stuff, but it's just like, it's hard to wrap my head around because they've been such a smart team and everything they've done has made sense for the most part. And this one just doesn't.
Did we mention that Diana Rossini reported that the 49ers to this point haven't been satisfied with the Steelers' offers and would like a receiver in return for Aiyuk as part of a trade, although they are open to players at other positions?
What receiver do the Steelers have that you want?
Zero.
I don't think
of
George
the
Pickens.
receivers.
I don't think George Pickens is a Kyle Shanahan guy.
No chance.
I'd like Roman Wilson.
A rookie? Yeah, great.
A rookie 3rd round pick.
Yeah, get out of here. No chance.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so they're open to other play. Okay, yeah, hey, TJ Watt. We'd love to have TJ Watt. The Steelers aren't doing that. That's why, again, it just the pieces don't line up, man. They don't line up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they keep him.
Me too.
I think they keep him, and then we find out, okay, Brandon Aiyuk signed for $112 million over 4 years a week before the season starts. That would be my prediction.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk about the preseason?
Oh, boy, do I.
I've got 3 things I'm watching, Chris.
Okay, let's hear them.
Number 1, the backup quarterback battle. Who's fired up for some Josh Dobbs v. Brandon Allen?
Yeah, it sounds like Dobbs got off to a rough start in training camp, and Allen has been steady. And I think that tracks given Allen's history in the system and the fact that he's been here for a couple of years and Josh Dobbs is new. But I think the ceiling for Josh Dobbs might be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
I think he just has a little bit more upside, maybe a lower floor, but a little bit more upside. So I think ultimately the Niners are going to keep 3 quarterbacks. Like, it feels like that's probably the move.
I think Josh Dobbs is going to wind up being. I think Josh Dobbs is going to wind up being QB2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watching them practice, I don't feel like there's a wide delta between those guys. So
I agree. Josh Dobbs did make this one play rolling to his left though, where he escaped pressure and then made this sick ass like layered throw on the run down the sideline. I think it was Frank Darby dropped it. But it was one of those throws that you just go, oh, that guy's just that's just a more talented player than Brandon Allen. But maybe Brandon Allen just runs the hell out of the system, and that's what Kyle Shanahan wants in a backup. But if they're looking for the more talented guy, I think that's Dobbs.
I think there's some interesting. I heard somebody, I forget who. I wish I could credit them, but there was an interesting discussion I heard about like maybe Josh Dobbs is the guy that you want replacing Brock Purdy if he were to get hurt in the middle of a game, because he's kind of a wild card given the athleticism and the playmaking that he might have.
Yeah.
And Brandon Allen might be the dude like, all right, Brock Purdy's out 4 to 6 weeks. You need Brandon Allen to be your starter for a month.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a differentiating factor there among the backups. I don't know.
Maybe. The other thing anything else on the backup quarterback battle?
No Tanner Mordecai. You have any Tanner Mordecai thoughts?
You mean the next Brock Purdy? No, I don't have any Tanner Mordecai thoughts. Here is the extent of my Tanner Mordecai thoughts. Tanner Mordecai, the OG.
That is a deep cut.
That joke was for 3 people, and 2 of them are on this podcast. I thought it was telling that when Brock Purdy in his press conference after when we were there after Sunday's practice, he got asked about Tanner Mordecai, and he's like, "Boy, great in the classroom." That said a lot to me.
I'd like to see him in a game.
Studies, bro.
I will say the fact that because the Niners have had 4th string quarterbacks before who just get like no reps in camp.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Tanner Mordecai is getting reps in camp would indicate to me that like he's doing a nice job. Like he's doing something well.
Tearing it up in the classroom.
So he's probably going to play the 3rd and 4th quarter of all these games, I would guess.
Yeah, at least the 4th quarter.
Yeah. But yeah, no other Tanner Mordecai thoughts at this point.
Great. I'm interested to see what the linebackers look like. I'm guessing it'll be a lot of D. Winters and a lot of Jalen Graham. And as of now, it's Fred Warner and Devondre Campbell at the Mike and the Will spot. Of course, the Will linebacker is the one that's on the field all 3 downs in base packages and sub packages. The Sam linebacker is the one who's on the field much less. It's the Sam linebacker, the 3rd linebacker in base packages. Demetrius Flanagan Fowles has been running with the ones at the Sam spot. And then yesterday it was Curtis Robinson was in next with Fred Warner out. Curtis Robinson got some burn. I'm interested to see if D Winters and or Jalen Graham put enough good tape out there to get in the mix for the Sam starting job. And maybe even the Will starting job. I know that Nick Sorensen did the hands up like, whoa, Devondre's the Will. And maybe that's just going to be the case, but I have a hard time believing if those two guys just go rip it up in game situations that the Niners are going to have them both sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like Isaiah Oliver was going to be the starting nickel last year, and then things changed, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of where I kind of, I don't know if this is fair necessarily to Devondre Campbell, but I kind of put him in that same Isaiah Oliver bucket to where he's a stopgap and maybe a hedge against the young players that you need to develop that you would prefer to be in that spot. But I don't know if Devondre Campbell is physically at the same level of Jalen Graham and D Winters, just in terms of athleticism and speed.
Yep.
And I think those guys are still learning how to play. And when they get more reps, they'll probably be in a better place to produce than Campbell would be, just because Campbell is probably at the wrong end. He's on the back nine, right? Maybe he's playing the final 6 holes of his 18 hole round here. Mm-hmm. So I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if Devondre Campbell is supplanted at some point during the season, even despite Nick Sorensen being pretty clear that Campbell's a will. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Campbell's going to be great, but I just, I think I think highly of Graham and Winters. And I think both those guys have a long-term future and could potentially start. And when you look at Drake Greenlaw potentially hitting free agency next offseason, like I'm looking at D Winters and Jalen Graham squarely. Like maybe these guys are, the replacement. So yeah, I'm with you. That's going to be interesting. I'm really curious to see Renardo Green.
Yeah, kind of all the rookies, but yeah, Renardo Green in particular.
One of the more interesting guys, because we talked about the corners, and obviously Charvarius Ward and Diamador Lenore are free agents after the season. And depending on what happens with Brandon Aiyuk, you might lose one or both of those guys. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately why they drafted Renardo Green. They didn't necessarily draft Renardo Green for this year. They drafted him knowing that they might need a starting corner, at least one next offseason. He's moved inside. He's played outside. It seems like he's very physical, very handsy. I know Nick Wagner tweeted today that, he wonders if he's being too handsy and in a game situation might get flagged for, illegal contact and holding and those things. But it sounds like, I think he looks good. Like, I think he looks like a guy who's going to translate. Like, it doesn't look like he's somebody who's never going to play. So I would imagine in the preseason, he's going to get a lot of run, a lot of reps. I don't know if he'll play against any good receivers, but I do think he's one of the more interesting players to watch in this roster, because next offseason, aside from, who knows? Like, next offseason might be crazy with Brock Purdy getting paid, and who knows what happens with Deebo Samuel, and, he's going to want a new contract, et cetera, et cetera. But a big point of conversation is going to be the cornerback position, and Renardo Green is going to be a very important part of that conversation. And if he looks like a promising rookie this year, then I think the 49ers will feel pretty good about him maybe starting in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, Renardo Green for sure, especially seeing if he plays inside or outside, and if he does play inside, just how he does, because he didn't play there in college. Dominic Pooney is the other one I'm really, really interested to see just how he holds up. It sounds like it sounds like the entire starting offensive line might play some, but Pooney for sure.
Except Trent Williams.
Obviously, except Trent Williams. I posted the unofficial depth chart on Twitter, and the reaction to the offensive line was so funny, because everybody's like, Brock Purdy's going to die behind this offensive line. It's like, it's just the same starters without Trent Williams. Right. What are you? It was an odd take, but yeah, I Dominic Pooney, just by virtue of injury, got regular first team reps, and he's now not been taken out as the team gets healthier. So I think he's going to be the starting right guard, and I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on how he does against another defense, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities against the Titans on Saturday. So I think that how he does in Saturday's game is going to go a long way towards either winning or losing him that starting job.
I would say, and I don't want to make this entire judgment based solely on training camp, and Ricky Pearsall's been hurt, so that's an important thing to note. But between Ricky Pearsall, the way he's looked when he's been practicing, and between Renardo Green, who I think has looked pretty good, Dominic Pooney's looked really good for a rookie.
Yeah.
Particularly, we saw Aaron Banks really struggle as a rookie coming in as a second round pick.
Yep.
Pooney's a third round pick and is probably going to start, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
This rookie class might be good.
It might be good.
It might be good. Like if Renardo Green turns into a starter, Ricky Pearsall turns into a starter, and Dominic Pooney turns into a starter, that's good. And then you still have, Malik Mustafa, who might also be a starting caliber player.
Yeah.
Down the line.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man.
I'm optimistic about the rookie class so far, which is huge for them because they need to draft well.
Not necessarily. I'm interested in the Renardo Green and Dominic Pooney's of the world because I think they could start this year. A player I don't think could start this year, but I think could make the roster is undrafted Mizzou running back Cody Schrader. And I think he's going to get a lot of burn. And I'm excited to see what it looks like because there's a very real chance that he is one of those preseason standouts, but I don't think it's going to be fake. I think if he shines in the preseason, it's going to be enough to get him a roster spot.
I thought, and again, we watched a padless practice, so take this with a grain of salt, but I thought in terms of being a decisive runner, and, just like what Kyle Shanahan wants is a decisive, aggressive runner. Like, do not dance behind the line of scrimmage. Like, if you're going to hit a hole, hit it as fast as you can. And get downfield. And I think Schrader's kind of that guy. Like he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he knows how to play the position and has a really good feel for it and runs where he's supposed to and hits the hole with efficiency. So yeah, I think given the fact that, Isaac Rendo's dealing with a serious hamstring injury, or at least a significant one, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this is a Cam Latu redshirt season for Isaac Orendo, then Schrader ends up making the team. That wouldn't surprise me at all. We haven't mentioned Drake Jackson going on an injured list, effectively ending his season. That's a tough break, man. It's a tough break for him. It's a tough break for the Niners.
Yeah, man. I feel so bad for Drake Jackson, man.
Yeah, I do too.
That's so he had that surgery where you're reconnecting the quad to the knee. I think Weston Richburg had it. I think Mike McGlinchey had it. Yeah. And it's not a surgery that everybody always comes back from like 100%. And I know Drake Jackson talked to Mayoko during the offseason and was fired up to be back for camp and was really optimistic about his recovery. So being put on IR on August 8th, that's pretty brutal. Having nothing to do, we could talk about the football implications of it too, but just from a human standpoint, that sucks. From a football standpoint, he was a player that going into this year, you're like, all right, it's kind of a make or break season for him. He's going to get a ton of opportunities at defensive end. And now it looks like those are going to go to Robert Beal, the second year BE out of Georgia. He's going to be the guy who steps into those snaps.
Maybe Beal can play. I'm optimistic about Leonard Floyd. But I'm also, we talked a little bit about it earlier in the week, but Yetur Gross-Matos, I think he can play. I think he can play, and I think he could potentially play in this system. And I think he could be at minimum what Charles Omenihu and Arden Key were.
Yep.
I think he has real upside. So
I agree.
That's interesting.
All right. I think that's what we got.
A hot 45.
A hot 45. We'll talk after the preseason game. Have a little breakdown of what's happening with Niners Titans.
Yeah.
Can't
Either
wait.
Saturday night or Sunday, depending. We got the tickets to a show on Saturday night, so I'm not entirely sure how the timing's going to work out. Maybe you and I can hop on.
We can do this. We can iron this out another time. There will be a podcast about the 49ers and Titans game and our observations about it up on your feeds some point after the game. It might be Sunday morning, it might be Monday, but there'll be a podcast for you.
And we'll have, if there's a resolution to this Brandon Aiyuk saga,
Yes.
we will talk about that also.
Yeah, so stay locked in.
We'll either praise the 49ers for getting Brandon Aiyuk signed and ending this stupid conversation, or we'll rip them for trading him and doing the dumbest thing they've done as an organization since Kyle Shanahan was hired.
We'll either praise the 49ers for getting this done, or we'll become a Vikings podcast. And that's all right. All right. Shout out to our homies at Lamb Chops there in Minnesota. That's why the Vikings came to mind. All right. That's it. Subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe if you have a friend who's a Niner fan and they're not on game, let them know to subscribe to Candlestick Chronicles. Exciting news via Instagram with the homies at Cooperage.
Cooperage is this the 4th year?
Yeah.
They're making Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA?
It is it is being brewed.
It's gotten it was a great beer when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2020? 2021?
21.
I think it was 2021.
No.
It was a great beer.
21, 22. Yeah, 21.
It was a great beer when it first came out. It's gotten slightly better each year.
I agree. A little more crispy.
It's really good.
I don't know if you can see it with all my K-pop boys here, but these cans right here, OGs. These are the original. Oh yeah, look at those lamb chop shorts Chris is wearing. This is good. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Candlestick Chronicles Podcast on YouTube, or just search Candlestick Chronicles. Is that an OG can?
I believe so.
I got the OG 4-pack right here with the gold tops. Shit's fire. It's still fire.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is
spoiler alert on the Cooperage sponsorship, by the way.
This is the I mean, we're biased, but if you're a Niners fan, there's no doubt that this is the sickest beer design, or the sickest can design of a beer in the history of beer.
Couldn't agree more.
Full stop.
This goodbye has taken entirely too long.
Yeah. Shout out to Cooperage.
Tell your friends about Candlestick Chronicles, the podcast and the beer. Subscribe, rate, review. Subscribe on YouTube at Candlestick Chronicles Podcast. Search Candlestick Chronicles. You'll find us there. And you can see Chris's awesome lamb chop shorts. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.